Hi, everyone. This is Tolec for the Andromeda Council and Transformational Shift Life, including Transformational Shift events. Today is Saturday, February the 3rd, 2018, and I'm honored to have with me Dr. Maree Batchelor from Melbourne, Australia. Maree, how are you doing?
Hi, Tolec. I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for having me on for this discussion. It's always lovely to talk with you and always fantastic for me to get my information out there. So I'm very honoured to be doing this with you today.
Always a pleasure. Now, just for those folks in the States, Australia is on the other side of the world, and so you guys are experiencing summer right now. You're smack dab in the middle of summer. We
are indeed, yeah.
And how are things in Melbourne today?
Oh, very good. We've got the sun shining, and no, it's a great day actually. So a beach day later for me with my children.
Okay. Well, for those of you who are listening that are not familiar with Maree, I will briefly read her bio, and we're going to get into some topics that were discussed recently at the Coffs Harbour Close Encounters Conference. So, Dr. Maree Batchelor, MD, worked in mainstream medicine as a GP, family physician, for over 20 years. As well as her medical degree, she has a diploma of obstetrics and gynecology and is a fellow of the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners. She's also a mother of 5 children. After the tragic death of her son in 2008, she experienced an awakening and went on to study and practice with a holistic approach to her patients. Spiritual counseling, meditative self-inquiry, and energy healing form the basis of her practice. A further profound experience in India in 2014 propelled her even deeper into the realms of energy medicine and the holographic field. Now using embodied light frequencies, she removes behavioral triggers and energetic blocks from a patient's physical, emotional, and energetic body, working as deeply as the DNA level to clean, clear, and activate full potential. This releases past life karma and trauma, dysfunctional family lineage patterns, and the effects of the conditioned matrix we all live in today. Maree's work is multidimensional and consists of energetic counseling and hands-on healing. The relief from her sessions is performed both in person and by Skype, and it's known to be life-changing for people. To go off the reservation, I can tell people firsthand, I've seen what happens when Maree works in a room of people and the transformative changes that happen, as evidenced by our conferences in Forster and Tugun back in October. So, Maree, before we start talking about Coffs Harbour, I'd just like to touch for a moment on what you experienced that Sunday afternoon after you brought us all through a session, a clearing session in Forster for that group of 24 people.
Yes, look, that was an amazing experience for me. We had such a wonderful group of people gathered, and it was at the end of that time together at the conference. And I performed my activation on everybody, and as everybody was being cleared and cleaned, the light that was coming through them and into the room was absolutely incredible. And when I got everybody to open their eyes at the end, the love and the light that was pouring through people's eyes was absolutely mind-blowing. And you know, the experience for me was something that I'd really not had before. En masse love projected back at me. And people were crying, people were feeling relief, people had said that, you know, their shoulders had improved after years of pain, their physical bodies had changed, they felt lighter, they felt happier. People were crying because their hearts had been opened and they were feeling the profound love as well. It was absolutely an amazing experience. And you know, people have since commented to me that they found that life-changing for them as well. So it was such an honour to be able to do that with such a beautiful group of people. And I've done a few more activations like that in group settings and also had amazing responses. And, you know, look, it really is showing that what I'm doing is actually cleaning up this mind-body vessel that I believe has been contaminated by fears and anxieties that have been projected on us or energetically implanted on us, or we've experienced things in past lives or this lifetime that really build up a wall to the truth of who we are. And when we start clearing that off, the light that's possible to come through a person and actually change them back to their sovereign state of peace, love, joy, well-being and self-healing is really evident. And I'm finding more and more people requesting Skype sessions from all over the world. And I'm just amazed at how people are responding. It's really quite incredible. The other thing that's been happening for me is I've been guided to start clearing off deeply the toxins that have been affecting people. So my work is also now involving removing a lot of heavy metals, removing black goo, insectoid type beings that are siphoning off energy, entity attachments, archonic plasma devices. I'm removing parasites, bacteria, viruses and amoeba and worms and all sorts of things. And this is really helping people a lot as well. So it's a huge transformation that people can experience. And I'm finding that people are stepping forward, often saying that they know they have a mission here. They know they're supposed to be doing something, but they feel blocked. And of course, we know that as this shift is happening with humanity, the dark agenda is really stepping up to prevent people from embodying their light and getting on with their mission. And so I feel my job as the multidimensional physician is really taking people back to that sovereign state and releasing all that has been done to them in so many ways to prevent them from stepping into their light, their truth and their mission. So it's really quite, you know, amazing work and quite profound. And I'm really enjoying it and seeing such fantastic results. It's great.
Hey, Maree, have you taken account of a greater preponderance of certain kinds of energetic blocks, that there's, if you will, a greater percentage of one type or another? Or are they pretty equally distributed?
Look, they're fairly equally distributed. People are experiencing things in different ways. Some people are finding that they've become super sensitive to things. So people are saying they're finding the environment so you know, toxic for them. They're finding they're allergic, they're needing antihistamine medication, they're itchy, they're finding that they're sensitive to the sun or to food and getting bloated and being nauseated. So there's a sensitivity as the environmental toxins have been ramped up and the genetic modification of foods. And so people are saying that they're really sensitive. And after a clearing, they're finding that they're not needing antihistamines. They're able to tolerate a lot more, a greater range of food. Then there's other people that just feel blocked in their ability to move forward. And I've found that there's entity attachment or devices that have been actually enmeshed in their very being and are actually mimicking them, and they can't tell the difference between them and the anxiety that's being provoked by this attachment. And people will find when I do the session that even initially they'll say, oh, I don't think I should be doing any more of this work. And I know that that's the entity trying to stop them. And we'll sometimes get a bit of disturbance through the Skype connection. And then that'll all settle down. And then this entity will actually fall off, resolve and disappear. And people are experiencing the release of lifelong anxieties that was run by something that had attached to them. The other thing is that, you know, I feel that people are coming into this lifetime with post-traumatic stress disorder. It's already enmeshed in their being from their past life experiences, some of them real, some of them implanted. And they're sort of starting off in this lifetime feeling there's something wrong, feeling they don't belong, they don't fit in, not knowing how to navigate in this dimension and bring in their light. And when I'm doing the work, that is also, you know, cleaning off so much of their anxiety. I did a recording, an interview with Alfred Lambert Weber back in November, and I do a clearing process at the 50-minute mark. And the number of people that are feeling the energy from that and experiencing quite profound shifts just as a starting point before they engage in having further work with me is, you know, it's quite incredible. One woman was telling me that she started to listen, and something was saying to her, oh no, don't do this. And then it started to say, I'm losing her, as the energies were increasing. And she saw an entity literally fly off her left shoulder and just sort of disintegrate beside her. And she just reported feeling overwhelming joy, peace, and love and connection that she'd never felt before. And she said that her anxiety that had been running her all her life just melted in that moment. And then she opened up to more of her multidimensional understandings, and she recognized that she'd actually had experiences on craft, and that she'd actually now had recall of being taken by benevolent beings and having things done to her. She also recalled having an experience of time traveling where she went to buy a mobile phone and noticed that in the shop things looked rather odd. And she reported she said to the guy that was selling the phones, I'm interested in buying the latest iPhone. And he looked at her rather strangely and said, I don't know what you're talking about, and brought out a Motorola flip top for her to buy. And she said, no, this isn't quite what I'm after. She stepped out of the shop and a full-on energetic swirl around her, and then she came back into normal time. And all of that experience just came flooding back to her, and she recalled the whole thing and realized that she'd had experienced some time travel. And what we've got to understand is a lot of the time the amnesia that is put on us, the mind wiping, means that we haven't been able to recall what's been happening to us multidimensionally, or what has happened to us in previous lives, and how we've been implanted with fears and coming in with, you know, traumas from, you know, past life experiences. And these are coming to an awareness and then are able to be dealt with. And so what I'm finding is that when we bring awareness to what's happened, we can actually start to deal with it. So it's not about being focused in the fear, it's being aware of it, not resonating in it, rising above it in frequency, and actually clearing off that stands in the way of our truth. And it really is quite incredible just watching people transform. And I'm getting a lot of post-session email thanking me for how they're feeling and what's been taking place for them. So it's really very exciting. I've also had some people that know that they're of missions, they're writing books. I've got physicists, geneticists who really want to contribute their understanding of now their multidimensionality and what's going on with the truth in science and so forth. And they've felt blocked about writing and publishing their book. And then I'll do a session, and then they'll feel free to do the work that they've come here to do. So it's really clearing people off and getting them into their state of sovereignty, so that they can bring in the frequencies and assist humanity in their particular way, you know, bringing forth their piece of the puzzle, bringing forth their understandings to contribute to the shift in humanity. So very exciting. And we know this shift is taking place and humanity is evolving. And I feel very privileged that I'm here helping people with this. And certainly from my own understandings and what happened to me and the clearing that took place when I had my awakening, it's my journey that I'm able to bring forth the experience and the understandings, and then what actually happened to me with the evolution of bringing through frequencies to assist others. So, you know, it makes sense. It actually does make sense when we open our awareness to this multidimensionality that we are and what we're here to do. So it's been great. I've been really enjoying watching this shift for people.
Well, and I'm sure that your own experience created a heightened sensitivity and a deeper sensitivity, not only to your own emotional state, but to other people's as well. It probably just created a more sensitive person that you are today.
Oh, look, absolutely. It really just opened me up to a greater understanding and empathy for how people are traveling. And by grasping what it is that has been standing in our way of finding that overwhelming peace and joy and contentment, regardless of circumstances. This is to do with our beingness. This is to do with who we're supposed to be, and shifting into that state and being more present and releasing ourselves from the shame and the guilt of the past, or the anxieties about what's going to happen, and really sitting in the present moment and releasing from what I call the time matrix, and actually finding who they are. And from that, I started to understand that people are being, controlled, if you like, by what I call parasitic thought forms. And these thought forms are where a person has a doubt about themselves or a negative feeling, emotion, or thought, and then something comes in and actually makes them loop and ruminate in that negativity, taking them out of the present moment, either into the past with guilt and shame, or projecting into the future with this terrible anxiety about what's going to happen to them financially, or to their health, or to their loved ones, or to the planet. And we really need to release ourselves and no longer consent to having our mind manipulated to that level to be taken out of the present moment. And so bringing in the frequencies, clearing off these parasitic thought forms is just so effective. And as you said, this was a process that was happening to me after my profound experience in India. And so it's through that I'm able then to relate to what other people are going through and say, look, I know what's happening here. I know how to overcome this because I've done it for myself and many others. Right. And releasing from the thoughts and the mind control that are taking us back down into the lower dimensional fears.
So as you evaluate each person, are you, at least in the physical, when you're standing there and someone's in front of you, I'm sure you're probably able to detect energetically what's going on with each person and within a particular area or field in their body. I'm just curious, how do you do it when it's like you and I are having today, when it's a Skype conversation?
Yeah, look, it's really amazing how well it works on Skype. I find it just as effective as the in-person sessions. Okay. And somehow we've just become energetically connected, and it doesn't seem to matter about having the interface of the computer and the Skype setup. It just, the energy just comes through me and then starts to work on the person, even if they're on the other side of the world. And as the energies come through, I'm given information about what needs to take place. And I also I physically can experience where the blocks are and what needs to be removed. And I'm just very guided. This is definitely coming from the multidimensional, higher dimension of me. And I work with some very high frequency galactic beings that I know that I'm here on mission with. Now, these beings, I'm very aware that they're coming through, and a number of people will see me shapeshift into them when I'm doing the work. So people will say, oh my, you're an ancient Indian man now, or you're a Indian woman, or a Native American, or an ancient Chinese person, and they'll say that there's just a feeling of peace and love and wisdom that comes through that being. That is just so extraordinary that people can see that, and they experience then the multidimensionality. They understand that this reality isn't solid, and that it is sort of a simulated computer setup, and that we can step into these other frequencies and these essences of these great beings and other healers from other times are coming through to assist with the work. And what people need to understand is these are galactic beings that have incarnated on Earth, had a physical body, and they represent themselves by showing themselves when I'm doing the work. And you don't even have to be that awake to experience that. What I've found recently is my 16-year-old son has brought over a few of his friends who have just started talking to me about my work. Okay. And then I'll be answering them about what I do. And then they'll go, oh my goodness, what are you doing? You look like some Indian man. Oh, wow, I feel different. Something's happening to me, they'll say. And, you know, that's quite incredible. And such a positive experience, and also showing us that this shift is happening. So these kids, these teenagers, are already getting activated to a level that they can start to experience the multidimensional frequencies and have healings. So, you know, quite profound. And, you know, another really interesting story is I took my 16-year-old son and his two friends on a camping trip with my two younger girls. We had an amazing week away, and they all woke up just being in my presence, just discussing some of the things that I do. The whole week felt like we were in a different dimension, experiencing so many things, and they've all come home completely different and transformed.
Wow.
To the point that their parents have called me and said, what have you done to my son? He's completely different. Can I have some? What is it that you're doing? It's incredible. They seemed so much more peaceful and spouting forth wisdom. What is it? What's going on? So I'm really excited about what's happening, you know, locally here with me and my children and their friends, and running into people in the street that are saying, oh, I ran into so-and-so, I know you took them camping, and wow, they sound and look and just seem to be much happier and a different being. So
wow, I can imagine some of the conversations between you and the parents. It's like, what are you doing? Give me some. I want some of this.
I know. I mean, seriously, I had a dinner invitation from the mother of the boy I took away. Please come and tell me, what is this? What's going on? And so, you know, it's the ripple effect. It's
yes.
really having an effect on people. And, you know, I just noticed on this camping trip, we were just in a different frequency the whole time. We were, you know, off the grid, just fishing, surfing, really having a lovely time. And all of this just started transforming without any effort. And then I did sort of some specific clearings on these children, and they looked cleaner, they looked lighter, their eyes lit up. And their expression was, you've pulled back a veil. It's like we've been living behind a veil. And then what was incredible is they kept seeing evidence of the Matrix. Oh, wow, it was in this TV show. It was in that song I was listening to. Yes. Wow, I can see it on that person. I can see the way I behaved or the way they behaved. I can see the programming. And they really have, you know, started to step up into what's going on here. It's really been incredible.
Well, people don't quite realize until we start having these kinds of conversations about the true cause and effect of spending more time physically or just in conversation with people who are of a higher vibrational frequency, like yourself, with people who choose to go out in nature, with people who are turning off their televisions. The television has been such a divisive, aggravating, programming
absolutely
piece of technology for years. And the kids, not only kids, but most adults don't even realize that the more time they spend in front of it, the more they're getting programmed. And so
absolutely. I mean, this is about dumbing down people. This is the mind control. This is the suppression. This is switching people off from their light. And it's not only the frequencies that are coming through the actual television, it's the content.
Right, exactly.
But what is interesting is that some of these shows, though, are also bringing through information. It's almost like they're teasing us. They sort of show it right up in front of us, some of that's going on the planet. and it's in the cartoons, and it's in, you know, some of the kids programs and some of the movies. And it's interesting because these teenagers that I took away were all saying, oh wow, that was in such and such a cartoon. I thought that was just fantasy, but it's real. And they're starting to see where the messages are actually there, but it's almost like a tease, because people, unless they've got some level of awareness, just don't get that they're revealing a lot of, you know, some of what they've done here to us. It's,
Sure.
yeah.
Sure. Hey, I'm curious. I know that you said that there are, if you will, lower dimensional entities, ones that are parasites that have just latched onto people. Have you detected or picked up any off-center irritating frequencies that maybe have been passed on from one generation to the next? You know, let's say that you've got Mary, who's the daughter of Susan, who's the daughter of Jennifer. And Jennifer said, I don't want to do this anymore. It's yours, you know, subconsciously, of course.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that kind of thing where there's generational?
Absolutely. There's generational patterning, and it can skip a particular generation. It can come from a great-great-grandfather and actually just show up in an individual. And I call this family lineage patterning, and I believe it gets imprinted in the DNA, and it seems to be an energetic signature for them. And we clear that off for people so you can detach them from their family lineage programming. And it makes sense, because people say, I don't know why, I've had a lifelong fear of, you know, heights or, you know, whatever it is. And it can be either their own experience or even something to do with a family member that they've picked up some sort of, you know, feeling, a phobia,
anxiety.
Exactly. And this is why people go, I just don't get why I'm overreacting to something, because it's not theirs. And in fact, what I'm saying to people is any fear-based thought or feeling, in truth, is not theirs. It's not their original being. The original being is peace, love, joy, infinite light that knows that it's safe, knows that it's, you know, here visiting the planet in these human costumes, and doesn't have the level of self-concern that the programmed mind-body costume is overlaid with. And so we've got to start not consenting to that that's being done to us, and actually say all this fear is actually the program, is actually being put on us, including vows, contracts, spells, curses from past lives, from ancestrals, lineage. You know, we take on the vows and contracts of our family lineage, and these all need to be cleaned off. And the beautiful thing about the work when I'm doing it is we don't have to go through every single little thing. We can just seem to swipe off big chunks of it and just say, right, let's wipe off all family lineage fears and anxieties or vows and contracts. And it just seems to energetically shift out of them, and people feel a cleansing of that. So definitely, you know, this is where we're at. And you know, collapsing down timelines that are no longer serving. So timelines where you're in looping in sort of contracts with people, places and events that are not serving. These need to be, you know, released. And sometimes the energetic signatures that people have picked up from their off-planet existences, where they've been in, you know, traumas off-planet, we need to detach from that. People even pick up the energetic signatures of planets they belong to that then no longer exist. These planets exploded and they've got some sort of residue from that. You know, it's just sort of mind-blowing how much this human vessel has taken on. And, you know, it's no wonder that everybody...
You said that accurately, the human vessel. It is, in fact, a container.
Absolutely.
For a which is what we truly are, multi-dimensional, energetic being. And if we are, in fact, what I just said, that means that we are out in other dimensions and other vibrational frequencies of life, having experiences. And if we, in fact, are having those experiences and bringing them back into these bodies, then at some level, we're also doing it to ourselves, of course, unknowingly, but.
Yeah, look, I think that, as I say, the truth of us is this, divine energetic being that is in peace, that is infinite, and that what comes in and contaminates the vessel is a setup. It's done to separate us from knowing the truth of who we are. Okay. And so when we've come into this physical body, we've been, mind wiped and traumatized through lifetimes. And then we've been, we've not been able to feel the frequencies that we're supposed to feel, the lighter frequencies. And we've been cut off from that. And that has been done to us on purpose. And so that we've been more controllable, we've been in fear, and that makes us always look to the externals for some sort of solution. What can I do? Because we don't have anyone pointing, many people pointing us inwards to be self-responsible, to clean this off.
Good point.
And actually return us to our natural state. So the self-responsibility is important. But of course, this isn't taught. I mean, this isn't taught who we really are. In fact, the opposite is taught. We're really told to get in the mind. We're educated in the mind. We're not taught about our feelings and emotions to a depth that actually connects us back to who we are. And I'm sort of noticing that I've come to the conclusion that all psychiatric diagnoses are actually spiritual issues. And there really isn't a psychiatric illness, and we could get rid of that whole psychiatric DSM-3 book that I, of course, had to study in my medical training, because we're either out of alignment with our truth, which gives us a feeling of depression or anxiety, and we need to actually go back, find who we are. And, of course, antidepressants are doing the opposite, shutting us down and preventing us from feeling, becoming more zombie-like. Then those that are experiencing multidimensional reality are coming forth and bringing their experiences out, and they're being labelled as psychotic. But in fact, they're just experiencing different realms, some unpleasant, and they need to take control and actually not consent to being involved in those negative realms. And some people are having experiences of benevolent beings coming, and they're being diagnosed as being psychotic and being put in psychiatric institutions, pumped full of antipsychotic medications. And I have got patients that are coming forward explaining that. They've been at a barbecue enjoying themselves, that they see a craft land on the lawn in the property next door, beings get out, they have a conversation. They go back to the barbecue, they tell their friends this is what's going on. And next thing they find themselves in the psychiatric ward being pumped with the antipsychotics. And, one particular individual said she looked over and saw reptilian attachments on half the psychiatrists that were making the assessments of her. So, what a setup.
Oh, boy, that's classic.
I know, what a setup. And, this particular individual, her frequencies were so high from her experience with these beings that she was metabolizing the injected antipsychotic medication so rapidly that her levels weren't going up. And they were saying, what are you doing? And they said, you're drinking too much water and diluting it. And they doubled her dose and restricted her fluid intake in the so-called psychiatric, medical institution here to help. So, what a setup.
And there's nothing wrong. In fact, there's nothing wrong with her.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
She found my information and got off her antipsychotics, and now actually does some beautiful healing work for people and brings through amazing information with her connectedness to these benevolent off-world beings. So, amazing.
Maree, shifting gears, I'm on topic, but shifting the direction of the conversation a little bit. What would you say to people who have had difficult or challenging life experiences? Let's say that there's a young man or one young woman who's always been gifted, has always felt different, has been labeled the black sheep of the family, and therefore brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, whoever has chastised or always said to this person, you know, what are you thinking? You couldn't possibly be thinking that. Why are you so strange? You know, get out of my sight, sit down. I don't want to hear from you. And you've got people like this who've experienced years and years and years of emotional, and what can be, I would imagine, deep emotional trauma, because it's coming in the form of disapproval from immediate family members.
Yeah.
Have you run into people like this? Are you able
Yeah.
to help?
Look, this
Okay.
is a really familiar story. I mean, this is happening. The people that are awake and aware, and particularly the ones that have been awake and aware and gifted from an early age, have found it incredibly difficult in this lower dimension, because they've been judged, they've been ridiculed, they've
Right.
been rejected, and the human suffers so terribly from that. But when we take back the responsibility, and when we realize that there was nothing wrong with us, and it was that we were the light trying to fit into an environment that wasn't conducive, didn't accept that reality, but that there was nothing wrong with the individual. In fact, it was exposing what's wrong with this lower dimension. And when we clear off the triggering that gets stored up in the human mind body costume in the vessel,
Right,
the light
exactly.
pours through, you rise above it, and you can actually live a life peacefully despite what other people think of you. We give up the need to be understood, and we give up the need to really understand other people, although we know now that they're being programmed, that they're just acting out of their own fears. Our biggest judges and the biggest blocks come from this lower realm of other people policing us to behave in a certain way. And look, I experienced it horrifically when I woke up and came back from India and started telling people what I knew and understood. And I was living in cosmic consciousness, just feeling amazing, and couldn't understand why people were being so cruel. And, I was rejected from the medical community, from my family of origin. And, those experiences were extremely painful, but I also understood why it was happening and what I was to do. And interestingly, this is the lifetime that I say that we're in training. And this is the lifetime we get to get out of this lower dimension, find other like-minded, like-frequency beings, and support each other in our truth, and realize there is nothing wrong with us, that in fact we are the ones that are holding the light, and we're the ones that are actually in the truth. And it's interesting because when we, take the self-responsibility and clean off, you change your frequency field, and it doesn't affect you anymore. You're actually living in a different frequency on the earth. So you're on the planet, but not of the lower dimension. And that's the true shift. And then these people can't affect you. And you then start to gather through the frequencies that you're emitting synchronistically people to support who you are. And look, even the fact that I never, imagined that my son was going to wake up so quickly, and he'd been rejecting me and all my beliefs and understandings ever since I came back from India. And to see him transform was just so heartening. Now, that wasn't me desperately trying to fix or change him. It just happened. So we know that when we stand in our truth, know there's nothing wrong with us, clear off our reactivity and triggering, the light comes in, we feel better, and other people will benefit. So, it's really about, this is the lifetime we get free will. Up until this point, we'd been so sabotaged, recycled, and mind wiped that we didn't have free will. And I don't believe that this planet has been one of lessons, or this is a school. It's really been an enslavement camp, fed back, mind wiped, traumatized, and get back to work on the treadmill. Whereas this lifetime, with the photonic light packages coming in, the benevolent assistance, the thinning of the frequency veil, we're getting to find who we are. Right. And with that process, we are starting to get free will, take self-responsibility, and we're in training. That we're experiencing as we journey is also going to be where we'll come in and help others. We then can have the empathy to then help others with the light that we bring forth, and step into our mission to hold our hands back and bring forward a greater number of humanity. So it's training. So as excruciating as some of these human experiences of rejection can be, it's also part of our training, our awareness, and waking up to the reality.
Right. You touched on so many topics there.
Sorry.
It's okay. I'm like, rewind to 5
Yeah.
ago. So I want to touch on a couple of things. When you were talking about and addressing the fact that there were these people approaching you and they were trying to get you to buy into, well, you should be, I'm speaking off the cuff here. You should be buying into the guilt and the shame and the blame of what you've been through. And why aren't you suffering? And why aren't you guilty? And on all that stuff. And you're going, I'm transforming. I'm living a different life. This has changed me. I've got to do the best that I can. So you're actually living at a higher vibrational frequency than those who are accusing can even conceptualize.
Yeah.
That's where, that I'm sure you've heard this term before. There's a cognitive dissonance.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, not only do they, they don't feel it and they don't understand it. It is so foreign to them. It's like trying to tell, a fish what it's like to be flying in the sky. They cannot understand it at all. Yeah. And of course, they've been so programmed, and they're out of their fear of this shouldn't be happening, and out of their understanding of what so-called love is in this lower dimension, which is, I'll love you if you behave in the way that I want you to.
Conditional.
I'll love you. Yeah, I'll love you if you, return to your normal self. I mean, the number of times people have said to me, you have to go back to normal general practice. This is ludicrous what you're doing, because they cannot possibly understand it. And so the judgment and the ridicule that comes my way. But I also know in my truth exactly what's going on here for me and for the planet and what I'm here to do. So once my mission got activated, it was so clear that I had no choice, that this was why I was on the planet. And so when we stand in that and really trust that we will be guided and shown where we're supposed to be and where we're supposed to go, and let go of being concerned about other people's judgments, it will all open up. And again, I return to my own experience. I'm noticing my family of origin are now much more supportive. They say, we still don't understand you, but we accept you and we will support you and we want the best for you. So that's been
that's a step forward.
Huge,
Absolutely.
Huge. So, that's been 3 years in the making, but really big transitions are happening. My children, the 4 children, are really supportive, loving, my parents, my siblings, and that's just been brilliant for me. Absolutely.
Oh, my heart goes out to you. That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's given the journey that you've been on. It's certainly one thing to stand in front of a group of people and watch that positive transformation, whether the group is 24 or 240, but to actually have some of your own Earth family members sit up and take notice and say, we don't get all of this, but you know what? We love you and support you.
Yeah, no, it's been fantastic to have that.
Wow.
And, I still have many people who still don't get it. And, my ex-husband is seriously, causes great drama, great chaos, and he's in perpetual fear and projects onto me and tries to control and manipulate me and those around me. And that's still ongoing and part of my journey. I need to navigate that with love and compassion and understanding for who he is, become the bigger person, so to speak. And actually, he is one of my greatest teachers. And so, I go back to sort of, as painful as it is, there is something about that experience that is definitely transforming me and aiding, my work and helping me understand others more deeply. So it's training. We're all in training as we get ourselves out of this swamp, embody higher frequencies and become our truth.
You mentioned him as one of your best teachers. It must be quite the experience for you to interact with him, whether it's every 2 or 3 days or every week. And from your side, I would imagine that you at least step to the plate in a neutral, emotional fashion. You know, it's like, I'm here for my kids. I love myself. I love my children. And, you know, if you will, in a universal matter, in a universal manner, I still love my ex-husband, even though he's going to these places.
Totally.
And from his side, he just keeps spinning, you know, spinning and not understanding. He must get eternally frustrated because of the place he's coming from. There's until he shifts, he's going to keep going around and around and around and around.
Oh, totally. And it's just so unnecessary, really. But, you know, it's where he is at the moment, and I can't do anything about it. But of course, the more light I'm bringing in and, you know, going off and speaking at various conferences, and now my teenage son being activated and understanding me, the more resentment and anger and fury comes up. So in fact, excuse me, this is an interesting point, that the more light we bring in, you know, the more people will step up to really do attack. And that's something that people do need to be aware of, that as we become more centered and as we do this, not only the lower dimensional, the 3D, you know, people step up and try and block us. So do some of them, you know, the negative beings, and so does, you know, some of these agencies that are keeping an eye on us will actually step up and try and, you know, prevent us. But I always go back to the fact that we are more powerful than anything that's being done to us. We, in our truth, embodied with our frequencies in this vessel, can overcome anything and everything, from, you know, ridicule to toxic assault to electromagnetic frequencies to mind control. We have the power, and that's what we have to remember. Right. We have to remember who we are, take back our power, stop consenting to any of this that's being done to us, and overcome it all.
Yeah, and stay centered. And actually, as people, because I've been there myself, when you do a lot of self-examination, which leads to self-discovery and then hopefully leads to self-healing, you get through the other side and there's a new sense of balance. So the things that used to rock your world emotionally just don't.
Absolutely.
You can observe someone getting really angry or really frustrated, and it's an observation only.
Absolutely.
And there's no cause and effect between their pain and you, because you're not carrying the energy of pain anymore.
Absolutely. So you're not in a ego state of self-protection or fear, and therefore you're not sort of reacting in that lower energy that activates another person's ego. So you've dropped yours, and they just, as you say, spinning because you're not feeding into it. Right. And it is incredible. And then you see how much you've transformed yourself when you're not being activated or triggered by other people and what they're doing. And, you know, I always go back to being in the world, but not of the lower dimensional reactivity, triggering, programming.
Yeah. And it's a truly individual experience, because those people, you know, whether they're friends or family members, and I've met enough people to learn that it is typically and categorically those closest family members which attack.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it really, you know, they have to start questioning themselves, and they don't want to. They're not even capable of it. They don't, you know, without activated DNA and being completely shut down and programmed, they don't have the ability to see, know, or feel what we do. And so this is where the compassion does come in. So once you get over the fact that you're being ridiculed and rejected, and you take the higher stand, you actually realize that these people can't behave any differently. And that's where the compassion comes in. And you recognize this isn't personal. It's not about you really in a personal level.
No, it's not.
And when you depersonalize it and drop your human self-concern and your reactivity, the compassion comes pouring in.
Right.
And you understand the whole setup. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, on the opposite side of the spectrum from anger and frustration is what I observed and personally experienced when we were all together, whether it was in Forster or Tugan,
Oh,
to sit around the table. And every time I think of those occasions, whether it was for lunch or for dinner, and watching all of us and the conversations and the smiles and the joy and the happiness, just because we all resonated with each other. We inherently understood each other. We were experiencing mutual joy just because we were happy to be together and share stories. It was amazing to not only instigate that, but to also be part of it and, you know, look around and see you and David and Dan and Pauline and everybody else. I was like, this is just an amazing group of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, look, it's so fantastic. You feel supported, you feel connected, you feel a love, a familiarity.
Yes.
And it's fun.
It's fun.
It's actually fun. You're
Yes.
playing in a different frequency field. It's free. It's freeing. You get to have fun. And it's that pure fun that just comes through by being the frequency and by being the truth of who you are without, you know, worrying about judgments and you know, it's everybody's just in there as themselves, and it's such a benevolent, fun, great time. And the connections, and you know, we hadn't spent any time together, and then boom, here we are doing these conferences, and the connectedness was just incredible. People felt so familiar, and in fact, you know, it was great to see that some people recognized each other from, you know, there was a familiarity and even comments being made. I know you, I think we were on craft together, you know, and tears welling up in people's eyes, and people just feeling that overwhelming connection with, oh my gosh, I think we do missions. And, you know, just that depth of recognition, and it's visceral. And that's what I love when you start experiencing this. It's visceral. It's not of the mind. It's actually a reactivity of the body, recognizing one another and saying, wow, we know each other. This is familiar. So
it's much like Gary Zukav had described years ago, which is being your authentic self, living in your joy. This is exactly what he was talking about.
Yeah. And then creating from that. And that's how we can create and manifest these amazing things. And it's really when we get out of the way from our human mind of trying to control or judge, and just allow and just be in those energies. These higher dimensions of us set it up. They want us to get together. They're sort of sitting back going, whoa, they got there. They're doing this. That's great. You know, tick, we've achieved the next level of connection.
Right.
And that just feels very palpable to me, that it's we as the human get out of the way and allow these higher dimensions of us to set things up with a trust, knowing that it'll all, you know, fall into place.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's often not linear. You know, something will happen for somebody and set something up, and then it's, you know, A leads to D, then comes back to B, and then you find you're at F, and it's all connected somehow.
It's very, very tangential. Absolutely. Well, we talked a little bit about what we felt and experienced in Forster and Tugan. You just came back from a Close Encounters conference in Coffs Harbour. Did you see Kate? Who else was there?
Look, I caught up with Mary Rodwell. That's always beautiful. We had a great time together, and I, you know, had discussed her wonderful trip around the States. She had a great, successful time, you know, educating people on the new human and the children that she works with that are all being activated, have upgraded DNA, and they're having their multidimensional experiences. And she's been collated all that beautiful information in her book, The New Human.
Right.
And she's really bringing that out now and teaching people, which is fabulous, because we need people to understand the children. And instead of them being ridiculed and diagnosed as ADHD or what have you, because they're not fitting into the standard classroom. More and more people are stepping up to understand their children, or as teachers, understanding that there's another way to look at who these kids are. So she's doing a brilliant job and getting her information out. So I loved catching up with her. Caught up with Laura Eisenhower. Hadn't actually ever met her in person, but oh, look, we just connected like we were old friends, and you know, relate very deeply on all things, and we had a great time. It was a lot of fun, and I love her and really admire what she's doing.
Bright lady, very intelligent woman.
Oh, totally. So you know, I look forward to more connections with her. She was brilliant. George Kavasilis was there. He's another one that was just a like frequency. We had brilliant conversations, loved his presentation. He's doing a lot of off-world, you know, missions and experiences and bringing back information for people. And he's really leading edge as well. So fabulous. And, you know, great connections there. And look, many others were there. You know, the beautiful, you know, attendees there were high frequency, really receptive, like sponges to the information, and also bringing forth their own individual experiences. And a lot of the people in the audience are having incredible experiences, you know, off-world visitations and understandings and downloads of, you know, quantum physics and so forth. And everybody's got something to offer. So not only the presenters, but also the people attending the conference, and just, again, getting in that environment with high frequency, like-minded people, all with a mission to help humanity and heal the planet. It's sensational. And Catherine and Mick, the organisers of the conference, did a great job. We really, really had a wonderful time, and it was a beautiful setting, and couldn't have been better. So
did you find that the people attending were highly engaged, that it was interactive?
Oh, totally.
Good.
Totally. Good. And a lot of, you know, after each sort of lecture, there was a lot of time for people to get together, and the environment was so beautiful, sitting on the lawn overlooking the ocean, and people were just engaged in fabulous conversations. And yeah, it was great. So great to get people together. And these conferences are always about many different things, many aspects are brought forward. It is multidimensional. It is people bringing in different pieces of the puzzle and different things. And it's never quite, you know, it's always different to how you expect. It's always better. It's always expansive. It's always amazing. And these conferences are really about getting like-minded, like-frequency people together. And it's a great way for the community to really start connecting. So,
yeah, it would be neat if we could bottle some of this stuff and power some cities.
Oh, totally. Well, I think that we do. I think that we actually do. I think that we sit in these conferences, we power ourselves up, then we all go back to our homes and actually do bring some of that forward. And I think that's what we're doing. So it's our form of recharging, connecting, standing in our truth, and then feeling, you know, a greater strength when we return to our homes.
Yeah. It's they are absolutely energizing experiences. Whether they're, I've discovered that with the different conferences and events that I organized and produced last year, it really didn't matter what size it was. To me, it was about how much the people engaged, and what frequency essentially were they at. You know, where were we catching them? And each of them were different, as you know. Forster felt different than Tugun, and I'm sure Tugun felt different than Coffs Harbour. And
absolutely, it's you know, they all have a different feel, a different vibe, and but always positive and always expansive. And yeah, look, I guess it depends on the collective level of frequencies and consciousness, but where it's always a great experience. But I agree with you, some of these smaller events are just so beautiful and intimate, and the connections are very, very deep between people. And and quite transforming and just as powerful. And so those people go back as really strong, energetic beings back to their homes to continue on with their missions, whether they've been part of a small group or a bigger group. You know,
Right.
it's very helpful. Yeah.
So what's next for you? What's on the horizon for you in the next month or so? Anything? I'm sure everything is profound, but anything major in your life that's coming up?
Yeah. Well, look, I'm moving home. I've actually, I was renting until this point, and then decided to actually buy, which is interesting because I've had to sort of play the 3D game of purchasing a home, which makes me laugh because, you know, you're involved in this, and I'm sort of, people are going, oh, she's normal now. Look, she's actually going to own a property. Right. But look, it was really, I did this for my children. They want some stability. They want to know that I'm around and that I'm, you know, I'm here for them. And so I bought, you know, a home that's going to adequately house us. And so that's really turned things around. Interestingly, people's attitude towards me has changed significantly from that. Certainly my family, but, you know, people in the community, it's like, oh, okay, she's semi-normal. So, you know,
amazing.
Yeah.
What we're judged by.
Yeah. But, you know, it's funny watching all the loops and hoops that you have to jump through in a 3D world to, you know, purchase something as big as a house. But, you know, and then I'm finding myself, we've got huge stamp duties that we have to pay. And I'm thinking, well, this money goes straight to the government and actually should go to the Aboriginals, the original landowners. But, you know, where do I write the check? You know, how can I send it to them and not to the government who
they're always going to have their hand out in multiple directions.
Oh, totally. And then, you know, all the insurances that bombard you, you know, land title insurance now and all sorts of things, you know, in case somebody disputes your boundary, you have to have insurance for that. And that covers legal costs in case you go to court over your boundary. And you're just like, whoa, you know, more and more insurances, more and more fear mongering, and more trying to lock us down into this lower dimension. But look, I'm very much in the flow with this, and it is all about my children. It's actually to give them, you know, a family environment, because we've had such an upheaval to our, you know, our family unit with what happened with my awakening and the separation of, you know, my husband and I. But,
will you have a good sized backyard in this new place?
We do have a bit of a backyard, so plenty of room for cartwheels for my 8 and 12-year-olds. So that's nice. It's surrounded by a lot of trees, and I look over a reserve. So yeah,
oh, nice. That's
feels
great.
Beautiful. So it will be great for my work. I got a very positive, energetic download when I went into the home, and got a very big yes that this is where I'm supposed to be. It feels very energetically supportive, and it will be great for my Skype and in-person sessions. So you know, looking forward to that, the move, and, you know, really just getting myself set up there. Haven't got anything specific marked in the diary. There's a few whispers of people wanting me to go and do a few events in a few locations, just, you know, a day workshop or something like that. So things will be coming up. Sure. It's just been a very sort of busy time getting back from COFs, organising my children back to school, and, you know, getting myself sorted. But I'm really excited about this year. I think, you know, I really see a big shift in people. I see a shift in myself. I see a shift in the energies coming in on the planet. And I think 2018 is shaping up to be a great year for us, and the awakening and the shift in human consciousness. And of course, at the same time, we're going to see a lot of the negative things coming up, and the chaos and the destruction. But interestingly, that is going to propel people into an awakening, and it's often through events that get so difficult and traumatic that people crack open, you know, like myself with the death of my son, my 4-year-old son in 2008, which was what cracked me open initially to this awakening. And so the more that is going on in a negative way on the planet, the, you know, the weather manipulation, the fires, the earth changes, you know, some that have been manipulated by the negative agenda. And, you know, the revealing of, you know, more vaccine injuries and the genetic modifications of food and sensitivities are really making people stop and question what is actually going on here. And I had, you know, look, I had as an example one girl who called me because of a Gardasil vaccine reaction, and she was really neurologically shut down, feeling like she was going to die. And it was in that depth of despair and physical destruction that she woke up and started to see multidimensionally and saw her DNA and what was happening to it through the vaccine. And she was able to bring some light forth and start to transform that and heal herself. Now, through the vaccine that was designed to shut down the teenage population, both male and female, wow, she's been able to use that as a tool to crack open. So, you know, I have a lot of faith in the fact that as much as they're trying to prevent us from bringing in this light, we're going to win. And I always go back to the fact that we are more powerful than anything they can do. And when we remember who we are, embody these frequencies, stop consenting to the negativity, pull ourselves away from the negative thoughts and emotions, and don't follow them down the sort of rabbit hole of further and further sort of ego, confusion, chaos, drama and story, we actually come back to our light, take self-responsibility, become powerful, energetic warriors with love and compassion, and watch this transform, watch humanity and the planet transform. It's an exciting time.
It is an exciting time. I think that you focus on something which is really important, which is, it's one thing to be aware of these highly charged, dramatic events, which are throwing, as many of us have heard before, a lot of guilt, shame, and blame all over the place. But if we just stay centered in ourselves, stay centered in our hearts, stay calm, do things to help make other people's lives easier. You're certainly doing those things by helping to transform people. It's those biggest challenges that can catapult us into our greatest areas of growth and learning.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
And a new way of living.
Mm-hmm. And really we need to have the faith and the trust that this is happening, and then it really does. And keeping ourselves in that more positive outlook keeps us cleaner, less vulnerable to the negative agenda. And then it does transform.
Yeah.
So,
and you've said it in different ways, but I'll say it this way. It is having a rock solid belief in self, and in the power that you can do and be anything that you want to.
Absolutely.
And that's a great place to live. That's a great place to be. Absolutely.
Yeah. And, watch the sort of creativity and the synchronicities and the abundances and so forth all start supporting you to be that you're meant to be.
Yeah.
And, it's magical.
Well, you're doing an amazing job helping so many people across the world. I think this is probably a good time to wrap. Before we go, how about if you share with people openly the best ways to contact you and how they can learn about you on the web?
Yeah, sure. So look, I've got a web page. It's mareebatchelor.com. That's spelled MareeBatchelor.com. And then certainly people can check out my YouTube interviews. And as I said, there was a activation that I did with Alfred Lambremont Weber in November, and that interview is worthwhile listening to, and also particularly the activation at the 50-minute mark on that YouTube. And the other interviews will also give more information for people to understand me and my work. And then if people feel they'd like to have a session, the best way to contact me is by email, and then I send information about my schedule and how to set up a Skype. And my email is batchelormarie@gmail.com, and my Skype is simply Maree Batchelor, all one word. And love hearing from people, and I'm here to assist. And, you know, this is what I was activated for, and this is why I had my 3D medical training. It gives me an understanding of the human body and mind from the 3D level, and then this multidimensional training that I've had so that I can bring in the frequencies and really make a difference for people. So
well, it's been
for people. Yeah.
It's been quite a journey. I feel blessed that we've met, and I can tell people in the listening audience, I've watched Maree do her work in both groups of small people and large, and it's amazing the light-filled cause and effect that she has on people. So if you have any interest at all, feel free to reach out to Maree. She's a great lady. And Maree, thank you. Thanks for taking some of your time on this beautiful Saturday. And
oh, well, thank you. It's been such a pleasure, and always wonderful to connect with you and talk about all of these things. And I thank you for the great job that you're doing in, you know, bringing forward speakers, holding events, and doing the work that you do. And very grateful to have your support.
You're very welcome. Have a great weekend, and thanks everyone for joining us. Maree, you're a wonderful lady. Thanks again for contributing to this conversation. I always learn something.
Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure.
All right, take care.
Bye.